business attraction to the region, it is a key reason why we call Atlanta hashtag supply chain city. Several years ago, we actually looked at a study here called our Supply Chain City Study, and Atlanta came out ranking as the #2 digital supply chain hub in the United States. But what about the rest of the world, and how can Atlanta become #1 in that same stratosphere? And how do we continue to differentiate ourselves on a global scale? We have a very vibrant private sector that demands greater efficiency. And today we want to talk about what Atlanta really offers to the entire supply chain. Digitization is critical in the new normal, and this provides a much more attractive place for further development and investment. There's been a tremendous pressure on air cargo and supply chain industry experts caused by what's going on with COVID-19. And really, technology has to be the key to overcoming the challenges posed by the pandemic. So what are we all going to gain from this conversation today? You will gain a better understanding of what a cargo community system is and why it's important, why Atlanta is the preferred gateway for speed, quality, and transparency, allowing airlines and all stakeholders to process cargo from 1 kilo to 100 tons with unprecedented speed. And what makes Atlanta and the Atlanta Gateway a great place for the business environment and investment strategies going forward. You'll hear all about all those things this morning. So let's start with just some quick speaker intros. After me, you'll hear from Mary Waters with the Georgia Department of Economic Development, who works directly with many exporters here at the Georgia market. You'll hear from Elliot Page, who's Director of Air Service Development for the Atlanta Airport. You hear from Amar Moore, who's with Kale Logistics, the cargo community system of choice for the Atlanta Airport. You'll also hear from Donna Mullins with Mullins International, who is one of our key stakeholders and one of our key consultants in this project. And then lastly, you'll hear from Chris Northrup, who's with Southeastern Freight Lines, one of our biggest stakeholders here at the airport. So with that, I will hand it over here to Mary Waters to talk a little bit about what's going on with Georgia and the export community here in this market.
Great. Thank you very much, Ben. And I really want to thank everybody for taking the time to join us for today's webinar. It's a really pleasure to be with all of you. As Ben mentioned, my name is Mary Waters. I am the Deputy Commissioner for International Trade with the Georgia Department of Economic Development. For those of you who might not be familiar with the work of our department, we are essentially the sales and marketing arm for the state of Georgia. And our mission is to create jobs and grow investment all across the state. And certainly trade facilitation and export promotion is one of the ways in which we accomplish that mission. And that's really the purview of myself and my team, is to consistently be opening up new global markets for our Georgia products and services. It's really difficult to overstate how significant the logistics assets of the state of Georgia are to facilitating export development and economic development and job growth. Our logistics assets really are a boon for companies here that are involved in global business. And the Metro Atlanta Chamber, Hartsfield-Jackson, private sector partners are really critical to helping keep cargo moving, keeping trade moving, which is so critically important, particularly now at this juncture. I'm really pleased to report that Georgia, in a lot of ways, is essentially built for global trade, and our logistics assets certainly aid in that. But that's really backed up by the numbers. If you look at Georgia's trade numbers in 2019, we're the 7th largest state overall in terms of the dollar value of total trade. In 2019, that meant about more than $100 billion of imports coming in and more than $41 billion in exports going out. So certainly we're proud of those numbers, but we want to see them grow. And having new digital assets like Atlanta's air logistics gateway will really help facilitate trade and keep those numbers growing. I want to echo what Ben said earlier. Really, in today's age, and really just the fact that we're in the year 2020, we really need to be harnessing technology and leveraging every digital tool possible to eliminate wait times and keep freight, keep cargo moving at every stage of the supply chain. That's really going to facilitate global trade and ultimately act as a driver for economic recovery coming out of COVID. So with that, I will just say that the Department of Economic Development is really thrilled to be partnering on today's webinar, and really want to thank, again, our partners with the Hartsfield-Jackson Airport and Metro Atlanta Chamber, and all of our private sector partners for introducing this new tool that really is a game changer for the North American market, and a game changer for Georgia. It's a pleasure to be with everyone today. So with that, I will turn it over to Elliot Page. Elliot.
Thank you, Mary. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on what we're very proud of, the introduction of the Atlanta and America's first air cargo community system. I've had the pleasure of working with several private sector stakeholders in the freight forwarding sector, trucking, ground handlers, airlines, pushing them really to look at how can we increase efficiency on the airport? How can we increase efficiency and make our airport not just the world's busiest airport, but also the world's most efficient? Yes, we are in passenger, but also in cargo. And so, we teamed up with other airports. We have what we call trade corridors, where we connect ourselves to other international airports like Schiphol Airport. We have plans to connect with Mumbai and with Seoul, with Paris Charles de Gaulle, and with many other airports, in an effort to create the same standards on both sides of these legs, so that we can encourage cargo to flow between these airports. And one of the things that we realized that, in Europe, they had a cargo community system. In Schiphol, they did, Amsterdam, and we needed to have the same thing. So we've been working with different companies to introduce the cargo community system. We launched it in November of last year, and then we got hit with COVID soon after. So now we're working to try to promote this in the community. Those who have joined on early are very excited by this. They've been early adapters, and I tip my hat to these early adapters. And we need others to join on as well, to make it more efficient. There are many other airports in the US that are looking to join similar air cargo community system, and that we see that as a good thing, because when we create efficiency throughout all these airports and we connect them digitally, then we're creating efficiencies for all of us. And we're serving the clients of Mary and the clients of Ben, the manufacturers who need efficiency through air cargo. So I'm happy to have so many participants today. I think we have close to 150 participants, and more still joining as we speak. And and we will do this again. We will provide you, I think there is an attachment of information on how to join the cargo community system, how to get more information on this webinar. So look out for that. And we look forward to the presentation. So now I'd like to introduce Kale Logistics, who will give us a bit of a presentation on what exactly is an air cargo community system and how does it benefit our community and all the stakeholders involved. Thank you. I turn it over to Amar.
So very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I think we have a lot of global audience today. So thank you everybody for tuning in today. And first and foremost, before I say anything, let me just say a big salute to all of you who are on the call, and millions of our colleagues, who kept working during the COVID days, because, everyone appreciates, the healthcare professionals. But this war against COVID wouldn't have been possible without the involvement of especially air cargo professionals. So all of you, be it the customs officers, be it the trucking companies, be it the airports, be it the ground handling companies, be it the freight forwarders, all of you a very big thank you from me as a user. And obviously, I would like to thank you for joining this call as well, right? So this is going to be very interesting. I mean, this whole air cargo community concept, I mean, it has been around for some time. But this pandemic, as they say, the biggest challenges throw up biggest opportunities. And this industry, has always latched on such opportunities. Let me give you an example. When 9/11 happened, that's when in the US, this whole initiative of automated manifest system, gathered momentum. And automated manifest system means, you submitting the data to the CBP in advance from, wherever you are, right? And just this one tragedy actually propelled a lot of countries and the logistics industry worldwide, whoever is doing business with US, to kind of digitize and see how this data can be shared electronically. I think we have a similar opportunity here. What I've got is I've got a set of slides that I would just walk you through and just see how we can really latch onto this opportunity that we've got, and just make sure that we make most of the time that we have today on the call, and see what are the different benefits, and how can you use an air cargo community system wherever you are, whichever part of the world you are. So once again, thank you to all of you. All right. So COVID-19 indicators, as you must be reading everywhere, the global air cargo capacity is down, but the only thing that was flying was clearly cargo, and only 20% of the belly cargo was still flying, and freighter capacity, okay, it has been stable, for last few weeks. So although the aviation sector as a whole got affected, I think it also threw up several opportunities in the physical world. So we saw a lot of passenger aircrafts carrying cargo on the upper deck, and that's an innovation that wouldn't have happened hadn't there been this kind of disaster, right? Now let me just turn back to something very important. I think most of you would have heard this by now, that in our most efficient air cargo industry, we still have, for an average air cargo shipment, we still have 30 types of documents, 124 copies of paper, and 200 odd signatures when the cargo moves from exporter to importer, right? So there's a lot of paper that still floats around. Of course, we have electronic data interchange and EDI and all of that, but that kind of cohabits or lives along with this, paper, right? And all of this just impacted efficiencies thus far. So, there is this famous example of IATA doing this study in the 1970s and finding out how much time does it take to move an average air cargo shipment from origin to destination, and that time being 6.3 days. And that study, when it was repeated in the first decade of this millennium, they found that the time had come down to 6.1. So nothing virtually changed over last 25 years. And one of the reasons for that is, again, another very surprising fact that we have, is that the first air cargo shipment ever traveled with just one document, and now we have so many documents, right? Now, all of these documents were the reasons for delay, the reasons for inefficiency, the reasons for added cost thus far. But why do we need a war on paper, in COVID-19 era? Is because this virus, COVID-19, it stays on paper and surfaces for up to 72 hours, okay? So the virus stays on paper. So what it means is, and you can see the different interactions there, right? Between the forwarders, exporters, or, the forwarder staff doing transactions with copies of, paper in front of them. Or you will find that, at the airport, I mean, those of you who have visited airport cargo facilities, you will find that there's a lot of human movement with, paper, right? So far, paper was an enemy of efficiency, but now paper is an enemy of life, okay? because the virus stays on paper, and and the more crowd that we have, the more paper handling that we do, essentially increases the chances of COVID-19 infections, right? So we definitely need a war on paper now, right? Airport terminals are COVID-19 hotspots, okay? Because, cargo complexes, they have to function, and they have been functioning to ensure this vital cargo supply lines, they have to keep it operational, right? And we already spoke about this. As per WHO, the virus can survive on surfaces for up to 72 hours, right? And each interaction, we talk about social distancing, and there are so many norms that are being talked about because the virus spreads through these droplets. So each of those interactions, human interactions that our staff does, exposes themselves, to this risk of virus transmission, right? And then we also see that import-export cargo procedures, they involve these interactions. So these interactions are not going to be done away with so easily. If we continue to function the way we have been functioning so far, right? And, those with infections don't carry symptoms. I mean, most of the people, I mean, in my own country, in India, or for that matter, in the United States as well, a large percentage of people are asymptomatic. So it's very difficult to, find out, who is carrying this virus and how do we stop it, right? And in spite of all these measures, okay? So, and most stakeholders need to visit cargo. I mean, our drivers who have been heroes of the, COVID-19 war, right? I mean, they have to visit cargo terminals, the warehouse people. And I hear that in the US, a large number of warehousing staff is now slowly getting infected, because of this asymptomatic nature of virus. And all of this can essentially hurt these vital lines, right? So this is a mathematical equation. So rate of virus spread is inversely proportional to the rate of digitization, okay? And by digitization, what we mean is essentially, we are talking about removing paper. We are talking about removing, a lot of crowd that gathers in terms of, let's say, truck congestion, or in terms of, just the human movement at the airport. And all of that, indeed needs to be prevented. So the more digitization that we have, the less will be the rate of virus spread, okay? So this is, this COVID has indeed posed significant, challenges for our industry to function without, too many issues. And that's where I think technology can be used to create the new normal, right? I mean, all of us keep talking about the new normal, and this new normal is higher level of digitization, okay? So essentially, what we need to do, we need to submit and obtain, document clearances online. This happens in most places in the world, but that needs to increase. Let me give you an example. I mean, the common candidates for, document to digital equivalents are essentially the customs declarations, or the manifest, or the, airway bills that are, being sent across the stakeholders, right? But there are several other certificates, that get generated, and no one looks at that. I mean, in the United States, we definitely have this whole initiative called ACE, and that's going to help tremendously. But apart from ACE, there are other agencies issuing certificates, and, all of that has to now come online, right? You need to avoid congestion, so we need to effectively manage truck congestion at cargo complexes. This can be done using the technology that we are talking about, which is about, this whole air cargo community system. Let me just give you an example, right from the ground. What are the key reasons for congestion, right? Why do crowds get created, or why does truck congestion happen, right? So essentially, there's a lot of paperwork that happens at the airport. So if a truck driver is going to the cargo terminal, then he's parking the truck and he's going to the documentation counter, and there is documentation being done at the counter. Now, in this case, you look at the COVID-19 risks. I mean, there is social interaction and there is paperwork, both happening there. But in the meanwhile, whilst that documentation is happening, in the meanwhile, what you also have is a line of trucks, building up behind this truck that is parked, right? So lack of advance information to the handling companies, the fact that everyone congregates around the same time leads to truck congestion. And when you have this kind of community platforms that you create at the airports or ports, then you can actually schedule your deliveries or pickups from the airport, and that can greatly reduce congestion. I mean, we have seen the evidence of it in different parts of the world, and this is how you can actually open one front against the COVID-19 virus, right? Then there are different electronic delivery orders that have to go between the forwarders, airlines, and the handlers who are operating on behalf of the airlines, or between the trucking companies and forwarders as well. There are online payment options. Well, this happens in many places across the world. I mean, you have in the United States, you have platforms like Pay Cargo who facilitate that. Then there is contactless verification of the details. Okay, so today most of the cargo, when it is getting delivered, you're talking about paper getting signed or getting exchanged. So that can be replaced with QR codes that can be on the mobile phone, and that helps avoid a lot of these contacts or physical contacts, right? And finally, I spoke about documents like electronic certificate of origins, etc. They can be all, obtained electronically. So, in a nutshell, what is an air cargo community system? Elliot asked this question, right? So an air cargo community system is an electronic platform, okay, that facilitates digital interactions between all these stakeholders, right? From exporter, freight forwarder, you have customs brokers, you have trucking companies, you have the cargo handling companies, you have all the regulators, CBP, TSAs, and all these regulators. So today, whatever is happening on the piece of paper will get replaced by the digital equivalent or digital data through a single window mechanism. So it's like a single window, and when you access this system, either by logging in or by connecting your own system to it, this data can move electronically, thereby eliminating all this paper and all these social interactions. Rajni, if you can move to the next slide, please. Yeah. All right. So we have coined this term called paperphilia. Paperphilia means love for paper, right? So this is what we discussed. There's a lot of paper that flows, like commercial invoice and packing list. You have the delivery orders and bills of lading. You have the airway bill and the other documents or certificates that go with the pouch. And then you have the consolidated pouch that goes, onto the aircraft, right? So all of these are, opportunities for efficiency and for elimination of risk of COVID-19. If you can move to the next slide, please, Rajni. Okay. So here's a question, here's a poll, right? What do you see the air cargo's greatest challenge during COVID-19? And I think, you will get an option to answer, and then we can flash the results a little bit later during the presentation, right? All right. So if you guys can, yeah. Wow, the race is quite interesting between staff shortage and paper-based documentation. So maybe we can just wait for a few more seconds because I can still see, the votes coming in. And that will definitely give us some valuable insights into what we are going to have as a discussion going forward, right? Okay, so maybe I'll just end the polling here. Yep. So we see that paper-based documentation and staff shortage are, the biggest challenges we are facing here, right? And it essentially means that if you need to survive in these difficult times, then you definitely need to address these two issues. You need to do more with less, so you have less staff for whatever reasons, for due to lockdowns or because your company is not able to afford it anymore. How can you do more with less, and how can you eliminate paper? Well, this is exactly where air cargo community system comes in, because once you are connected to your stakeholders, just imagine a freight forwarder is connected to an exporter, or a freight forwarder is connected to a trucking company. Okay, then they can do more with less, because they will get data electronically from exporter to create their documentation, and they can send data to their partners, which is the trucking company, again electronically, and they can actually deal with the same or more amount of work with less staff. Similarly, with the cargo handling agencies, that are there at the airport. If the information from freight forwarders or trucking companies could hit them in advance, okay, then all the documentation that they need to do at the airport goes away. They can still manage with staff shortage, and they can still manage with less paperwork. So Rajni, if you can move to the next slide, please. All right. So then how do we transform to the new normal, right? The new normal is the digital normal. The new normal, you see in the pre-COVID times, you have a lot of, paperwork and information getting exchanged in envelopes and on pieces of paper. In post-COVID, if you connect everyone onto a common platform, and that really doesn't mean people have to do away with what they have. They can continue to use their existing systems, but still connect to a common platform, so that all this information that was moving on paper, can be avoided. Then that's the new normal. This is where we're talking about. If you see at the bottom of the slide, you see, QR codes being flashed. You see, the whole cargo journey from a freight forwarder's warehouse, or for that matter, from an exporter's warehouse, getting digitized through the community platform. And community platform doesn't mean there's just a portal. It also means that you can have access to the different functions of this platform through your mobile phones, which is what your drivers have access to when they are on roads, right? So using Internet of Things, using geolocationing, using QR codes and mobility, you can connect this community together without too much of effort from the community side, right? So it's definitely a change to a new normal, a change to a better normal. And I heard one of these motivational speakers saying that any change, okay, is very hard to begin with, right? It's the best when it's in the middle, and it's fabulous, when it's completely implemented. So a change is never easy, but a change is something that's required in today's times. And I think a lot of these things can be addressed if you create digital communities around the ports and the airports, and that also helps grow cargo. I mean, there are empirical studies, and experiences that show that the airports and the whole community grows cargo if they become more efficient. So I think I'm coming towards the end of my slides now. So these are just top 3 features, for COVID readiness, okay, in an air cargo community system, right? So truck slot booking, definitely, because it allows you to book time for tendering or pickup of cargo at the ground handlers facility, which essentially means you don't have to loiter around in the either in the marshalling yard or at the cargo terminal. And obviously, the cargo handler can also plan the operations better, so that can ease out a lot of congestions, social interactions, etc. Document to EDI services, this is an innovation, and I have a small video to show you around this innovation. So, there are people who can connect, who have the EDI capabilities to connect their systems with a common platform. And there are people who may have to use the portal. But we have tried to make it simple. In the COVID times, when people have limited ability to invest into any kind of technology, this is a technology that costs you nothing. You just have to send PDF copies of the document, or upload those copies onto the community platform, and that gets converted into electronic data. And this helps you avoid all those paper contacts that our logistics COVID warriors have to deal with, right? And then finally, electronic docket. So instead of having envelopes floating around and everyone opening those envelopes and closing them again, for handing it over to the next partner in the supply chain relay, as I call it, you can have a common place where all these documents can be stored against a particular shipment, and authorized access can be given to different entities. So these are some concrete features of ACS. ACS is not just this. ACS is a much bigger platform which kind of facilitates many more interactions and many more transactions. But to make yourself COVID ready, you can utilize some of these features of ACS. Rajni, if you can move to the next slide, please. Yeah. So there's a short video that So this was just one of the features or technology, that can definitely reduce this whole paper-related risk. So here we have the second poll before I close. Do you think technology will play a key role in post-COVID-19 to bring cargo back on track? All right, I think we can end the polling now. Yeah, so no surprises here, right? I mean, we have 94% of the people saying that technology definitely will help in post-COVID-19 to bring cargo back on track. And we completely agree with you. Having said that, let's be practical. Technology that will necessitate millions of dollars of investment, people do not have appetite to do that. So technology which doesn't require any upfront investment and is linked to your business transaction, that is, it is directly linked to your business, then that's the kind of technology that will help. And ACS is exactly that. So once again, thank you very much. I feel it is our moral responsibility as all the stakeholders of this air cargo community that we protect all those logistics heroes that are on the ground but who are exposed to this danger of paper. We need to protect them through having right technology in place. And I'm sure if we all decide and start questioning every paper that we are dealing with, how do we digitize that, we can achieve it. I mean, I see this as a huge opportunity for our industry, and I'm very confident that we will migrate or levitate to a higher ground after this time. Thank you so much. Thank you for your attention. So I think I'll hand it over to Donna, who has been with this industry, airfreight industry in North America for almost 4 decades. And, she has very interesting perspectives on this whole thing. So Donna, over to you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Amar. I hope that everyone else enjoyed the presentation as much as I did. And for those of you who are from Atlanta, you'll know what I mean when I say I'm a Grady baby. So I'm very, very happy that this is kicked off in my hometown of Atlanta. I am from here. And the thing that you were talking about, Amar, with the platform and the digitization, I've sort of referred to these cargo community systems as the ACE single window of landside cargo. In the United States, we have the single window, the ACE platform, where brokers and forwarders and the government agencies and the regulators all communicate their data and transmit information for cargo status submissions and things of that nature. But what we've not ever had really is the ability for those on the land side to see what's going on with the international side. With the WTO directive and the IATA 1 record, and of course the UN recommendation number 33, for things to really be in a single window environment. This is the next pane to that single window. And I don't mean pane, P-A-I-N. I mean pane, window pane, that allows us to see further visibility of cargo status, including the government status. So when you're dropping off cargo, if there's an ITN that's been submitted, it's available to go. And then the forwarder and the trucker and the ground handler can all see the status of where is the truck? Has it checked in the marshalling yard? Has it been docked in over at the warehouse? What is the status? How long did it take at the warehouse? These are very important key data bits that we need to have as transportation providers to be able to tell our customers, yes, I know the truck pulled out of the dock at 4:55 today. That lets us have a better visibility of where the cargo actually physically is, as well as being able to see the custom status in it, the payment status, if there is any payments required for the import cargo over at the terminal handling facility. So, I think that this really, these cargo community systems are really just the extension of the single window that has been implemented by the government. In fact, I think we have Chris Northup on the line, who is one of our stakeholders. He is with Southeastern Freight Lines. Most of you, I think, know him here in Atlanta. And he would like to give us just a little overview of his experience of the cargo system and how it's been able to help his company. So, Chris, I'll turn it over to you now.
Thank you, Donna. I appreciate that. Being involved in this from the beginning has been a huge asset to me and to Southeastern Freight Lines. The fact that it eliminates wait time, significantly eliminates wait time, visibility. Ground handler gets notification from the freight forwarder that the freight's ready. We get notification that the freight's ready. We book a slot. We take that QSR code over, scans into the truck pass. It notifies us when the door is ready during that slotted time that we've already booked. We're in and out faster. The ground handler has visibility that when we're going to be there to pick up that freight. It's been a tremendous benefit for us. I think the issue currently is that we just don't have enough people on it. We need more people to get on this system. It will work more efficiently the more people that we have utilizing it. Because right now we're going to Alliance that we're picking up stuff, and it's taking longer than it is potentially at Swissport because Swissport's on it, Alliance isn't. Same thing with Delta. So getting the community, getting everybody involved is key, but it is a very, very efficient system. It's reduced our wait time at Swissport by hours. So it's significant. Every trucking company will definitely benefit from this system. So
yeah, and as the truckers benefit, so does the rest of the community, right? I mean, if you're not spending hours over at the warehouse, then everyone's efficiencies are improving. Yeah,
absolutely, yeah. And you're looking at there's no detention time. I mean, you have to pay for detention sometimes. It's not there. There's not as much congestion at the truck pass and wait time at the truck pass because you know what time you're supposed to be there because you know the freight's ready and you know when you have your slot booked. So it's extremely efficient.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate you taking a moment to just give a little testimony for us here. I think, Ben, we're going to turn it back over to you to see if we have any questions from the audience.
Yeah, at this time, this kind of concludes our portion of the program that has to do with kind of the original programming. And I know there's a lot of questions that have been asked right now, and so I appreciate everyone who's already submitted a question. If you do have questions and you have not submitted that, please go ahead through the chat function of the box in your browser. Go ahead and submit through that. But we'll go ahead and take a couple questions now. But for those of you who do need to leave, I wanted to go ahead and show you this, kind of the so what basically of this conversation. What we really want you to do is really join the ACS platform, and you can do through this link here that we're showing. This link will be sent to everyone who attended this morning, or today I should say, so you will be getting this afterwards. And if there's other questions you might have, we do not answer here in the Q&A portion, then please submit that to any of us after here at the conclusion of the webinar today. But as far as questions for now, let's start with this one. Can an airport attract more cargo when it creates a digital community? Elliot, do you want to start with that question?
I think definitely yes. You're talking about an airport that is offering more efficiency. So you're promising all stakeholders that we're all working together to make sure that cargo goes in and out of the airport pretty quickly. Remember that the biggest bottleneck in moving cargo is on the ground. It's getting it off the aircraft onto a truck and vice versa. The aircrafts move it at the same speed, so that's not where the efficiency blockages are. It's on the ground. So airports have to work to improve that efficiency and make it fast. The reason people use air cargo is they want speed, they want security, they want efficiency, and you want to be able to monitor every aspect of that cargo. And this is one thing that this technology tool offers.
Yeah.
If I'm an OEM, or if I'm moving bioscience or very high value cargo at the airport, what does this system really mean for me? This is a question from one of our stakeholders that just came in just now. What are really the benefits? And Amar, this might be a question for you to start, but if it's high value cargo that needs to move efficiently, quickly, and I'm actually a beneficial cargo owner instead of, say, a forwarder or whatnot, how does this system really benefit me as a BCO?
Well, thank you very much for this question, it's very important to understand as an exporter, or for that matter, as an importer, how would, this system really help you, especially if you are carrying all the high value goods, or for that matter, even pharmaceutical shipments, right? So let's look at, what's important to me as an exporter or importer. I need to make sure that my cargo reaches the destination as fast as possible. There are minimal disruptions, and most important, because Ben, I always give this example. My father used to work for a automobile company, and for any exporter or importer, if they don't get the real-time visibility of what's coming in, then they have to store more inventory in the supply chain, right? I mean, my father loved his job, and he wanted to make sure that the assembly line always gets enough raw material when it is being imported from Germany, right? And He didn't trust the supply chain. He didn't know where the cargo is. He had to call up multiple people to understand where the cargo is. And the same case is with, all these high value manufacturers or pharmaceutical companies. They need to know where the shipment is. And when you have a connected platform like this is where, two or three things happen. Number one, supply chain efficiency builds up because now the data is moving electronically. It's not moving on a piece of paper. So all the risk related or associated with security of, of this paper and, whose hand it falls into, etc., they get mitigated. Secondly, the data moves, so shipment moves faster. And thirdly, you have the complete visibility of what's happening to the shipment. In fact, in our air cargo community system, we have some deep tech interventions. Like, if you're a pharmaceutical manufacturer and if you have, let's say, temperature monitoring devices on your shipments, then the data from those devices can come into the platform, and the exporter or importer, would actually know at what point in time in the supply chain did the temperature vary. And that essentially helps them, deal with all of these, claims related issues, etc., or just take preventive actions in advance. So, this is a way in which, and all of this can essentially lead to reduction in the inventory in the supply chain, which means reduction in the product cost and your product becoming much more competitive. So that's what people have been able to achieve. I'll give you another example, Ben. I know of certain airports who, before having such kind of platforms, had no idea who their large exporters, importers are and what are their expectations. And when they put together this system, they understood who their large importers, exporters, or who move large value goods or high value goods. And then they worked with their ground handling companies to come up with a product for exporters. So they said, if you are handling a shipment of XYZ, who is doing so much of cargo here, then the cargo has to leave the cargo complex or cargo terminal in, let's say, 3 hours or 4 hours flat. And what happens when one does that is that importer, exporter, or others like them are motivated to send the cargo through that airport. And that's how the whole community benefits, right? So this is the context, this is how the exporter, importer benefits, and not just them, but even the community benefits. Yeah.
Thanks, Amar. That's perfect. I've had 3 questions now as it relates to stakeholder adoption at this point. So maybe we talk about, kind of in the immediate Atlanta area, what the adoption rate has kind of looked like here and kind of what the goal is. Then also from a global standpoint, what are we seeing in other markets, from a benchmark standpoint? What does that look like for many other global airports and some of the airports that we've benchmarked with?
Perfect. Thank you very much for this question again. So let me first take the second one first, right? And trust me, I mean, we are into this whole business of digital community building, and what we didn't see happen in last 3 years happened in last 3 months, okay? So most airports and ports across the world have embarked on this journey, right? And I will tell you, there are different models of adoption, right? I mean, you can have an adoption model where, the airport or the handling company says that if you're tendering cargo at my terminal or at my airport, you have to use this system, and then that's period, right? Every cargo that moves through that airport or that handling facility, moves through this system, and that leads to phenomenal efficiency. That leads to everyone, moving to a new normal, new digitized world. And this becomes possible when the airports are, let's say, more privately owned, or, they have, that kind of power to do this, or in countries where there are diktats issued and this is the only way to work. And, that's something that definitely helps the whole community. And we have seen models of adoption where, you have 100% adoption in a year's time, right? And then obviously, there are scenarios where this is whole community initiative, right? So, community decides to come together, which is what happened in Atlanta under the guidance of Atlanta International Airport. The community came together, and then they said that, let's do it together. And, that's where we have early adopters, as Elliot mentioned. So, some of those early adopters, they become the early beneficiaries of the platform, right? And then the adoption takes, maybe an year, 1.5 years or so to come to the full scale. And there are events like what's happening now, they push the adoption big time. I mean, we had another example where, this was not like a mandate, but then around that time, European Union came up with a regulation for, submission of the electronic data, just like your US Customs AMS, and boom, the adoption went 8 times on the platform, right? I mean, during COVID-19 days, our online certification platform, the adoption went 14 times because, people had to work out of their homes. They had no means to, they were locked down, so there are no means to send their staff out. So these are the different adoption models, and that's where we are. So we have, I don't know, maybe close to about 6,000-7,000 shipments through the platform already.
That's great.
And yeah, it's picking up. I mean, Donna, we also have our colleagues in Atlanta because we have an office in Atlanta, and there are intense discussions going on with all stakeholders. Yes.
So the more stakeholders you have involved, the better it's gonna work.
Absolutely,
basically.
absolutely.
Perfect. I have to ask a question about security. I mean, anytime we talk about technology or the introduction of something new to somebody's process or technology they already have in place, cyber and other things, are always a concern, for IT, the IT piece of the businesses here. So, Amar, what can you and Elliot kind of tell us about, how does that interact, with, IT and so forth, existing infrastructure, then also, how, from the other side of security with customs and so forth, how do they work with the system, or can they even work with the system?
Okay, I think, Ben, you've just spoken out a question that was there in 85% people's mind, So what happens to data security, right? And when we began this initiative, and obviously we later got the United Nations recognition and all of that, right? And that's a validation of the security of the platform as well. So this is a common question that comes to everybody's mind. And then I asked them one question, today you're moving paper, right? What's the security, right? If that paper can be exchanged for a, can of beers, or, because this paper is freely on the ground, right? It's changing so many hands. And, what is the control that you have to make sure that your data is safe? It's very limited. Whereas when you speak about a system like this, which has, 7 layers of security, and those who are technical on this call, technical people, let me just tell you that, for any cargo community system, it's very amenable to blockchain. And we are doing several things around blockchain, that engenders the trust in the system, right? But even without blockchain, this kind of systems, and it's not just our system, any other system as well for that matter, has at least 6 to 7 layers of security at the database level, at the user interface level, at the network level. So the data that's getting transmitted, for example, if somebody is typing Ben and sending that data onto the platform, it's not at all going as Ben, okay? It's encrypted. So it's converted into an hexadecimal number. There are other arithmetic operations that act upon it, and then that data, moves. So the chances of breaking the 7 layers of security are way more less than the chances of, catching hold of a paper that's moving on the, terminals, or moving or changing so many stakeholder hands, right? And moreover, what we are doing is just creating digital equivalents, and that exists everywhere. That exists everywhere in terms of digitization. So clearly, your data is way more secure when you're operating on a platform which has 7 layers of security, right? And it's proven. I mean, today we have this community systems being used by at least 20,000 users every day, right? And that's because, and you can do your own test, or we can, give you the test certificates of, all these tests that are done. So clearly, it's much safer to have this data onto a safer platform which takes responsibility of the security of the data than the paper mode of operation. Yeah.
Thank you, Amar. Appreciate that. Elliot, I'm going to ask one last question because I know we're coming up on time. As far as the airports that you're currently working with already from an adoption standpoint, I know, Amar, we talked about this briefly, but what airports internationally are you already working with on this digital gateway, if you will?
So I can tell you some names, I'm not allowed to tell, but just to let you know, obviously, we are working with Atlanta. Everybody knows that. Mumbai, which is a great case study for the rest of the world, because for those of you who do not know, Mumbai is in Guinness Book of World Records for being world's most constrained airport. It's a single runway airport handling 1,000 flights a day, and an air cargo complex that was built in 1978 or something, and then they had no space to expand because it's a very congested city, right? So Mumbai, we are working in Asia Pacific, in Thailand, in Bahrain. We are working, with other airports in the US as well. We are initiating projects with 2 airports. We have started with 1 airport in, South America. We have just signed 2 MOUs in the Middle East, and we will be migrating one of the world's largest logistics hubs onto this community platform, in next 6 months. So that's all that I can officially share with you. But as I said, Ben, last 3 months have given, so much of fillip to this whole initiative that didn't exist 3 years back, so, and that's where it is. Yeah.
Got it. So that pretty much concludes our program. Here we are at 9:59, so a quick time check there. Elliot, I wanted to give you just a quick minute for some final thoughts, and say, if you have any questions about this, or kind of want a one-on-one consultation with someone or the entire team here, we're happy to do that. Please, contact Elliot or myself. My email is bharris@macoc, as in Metro Atlanta Chamber of Commerce.com. And Elliot, any final words from your side?
No, just to tell everyone, sign up. If you have questions, you can email me directly. It's easy, elliot.page@atl.com, elliot.page@atl.com, 2 L's, 2 T's, PAIGE. And, thank you all for participating. This was very interesting, but it works better when more of the community is signed up. So I look forward to more and more people signing up. The link is online, but you can also go to either our website or contact me directly. Many of you are connected to me via social media, or you can also contact Donna. Amar mentioned there's an office here in Atlanta, so you can also contact the office directly for Kale Logistics to sign up. Thank you all for participating, and I look forward to seeing you guys again. We will have a recording of this presentation for others to review later on, so you will get an email with a link so that you can share it with your community as well and get others interested. Thank you.
Elliot, Ben, thank you very much. It's been an honor and a pleasure to join you today.
Thank you very much,
thanks, team.
everybody.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Bye.